trend go? That first trend could last forever. So the second trend, we're talking about the where and the when and the how we work. And so I think the more we get into this new state of what do we choose? Is it remote? Is it hybrid? Is it in person? And then how, in the end of the day, right now, I don't think anyone's kind of figured that out quite yet. And so the shift of where is important. But I think there's then, therefore, as we're figuring it out, the shift is even that much more important to the how. Because we're going to have to assume in some ways that some form of remote, hybrid, and in person in the office is going to exist from here on. So if that's the assumption, and if we accept that to be the case, then I think it really lends to the how and the when, with 4 hour work weeks, it would be awesome, but 4-day work weeks. I always think to myself, you're welcome, Tim Ferriss, every time I say that, 4-hour work weeks. But yeah, so I'd love to hear your opinions on that, just as the shifting of the where into the how. So, Adam, you want to give a whirl on this topic?
Sure. Yeah, I'll give a whirl. I think Jen Fisher probably has a much more rounded perspective on this. My perspective is coming in, like I said, as a vendor to larger companies to host their team trainings, offsites, annual gatherings, business reviews, and just seeing a snapshot, and so coming out of COVID, what I've been able to do is basically we're calling it a culture reset. So it's the first time that people are gathering in person in 3 years. It's the first time that many people are meeting each other. Many people have left. A lot of the companies that I work with have had over 50% of their employees are new. So the moment when we do an offsite, which we do both virtual and in person. But what I've found is that the in-person offsite now is not like, I think typically people have, tried to do some kind of connection activity and then cram a lot of business stuff into a short 1 day or 2 day frame and just do maybe like a 2-hour focus on connection. And now I think the offsite is basically becoming, this is the moment where you define your company culture. And if you don't get it right, people can leave and people will leave. And so it's becoming like I think the in-person offsite has become this almost like sacred experience now. And I'm seeing some companies that are doing it really, really well and other companies that are not. And I'm seeing that a lot of the folks that I work with really, really highly want to prioritize doing at least a quarterly offsite, if not an annual offsite in person. And that's becoming like if they don't have that, it's really, really spinning people out. So I think, when I just did this survey, like I said, and some of the things that my clients said specifically around this is around they want more face-to-face time at least once per season. They want to get to know their coworkers personally, more connection, trust, vulnerability, and fun, better connection alignment to help everyone bring up their own brilliance. I think it can totally happen online, and I've seen it happen beautifully, but I think that the importance of having at least once a year, having everyone come together in person is becoming like essential. And so even with remote and hybrid work, if there isn't face-to-face time and deep eye contact and being able to see and really feel people, I think it's really, really difficult to actually build a sense of cohesion with a large group of people that's constantly changing. So that's a quick, people want flexibility. They want to work from home, but then the importance of actually being with each other and having time to drop in to connect, I think is becoming, it's also connected with productivity. People like when they feel connected, once they've had that in-person drop-in time, like people are happier, more engaged, and more productive. So it's a funny, balance to strike around like people who are just remote. Like, although I think they love the flexibility, I know that the research is showing that people are overworking too. So it's like,
yeah.
It's definitely a different kind of dance. So Jenn Fisher, what are you seeing from that level?
given everyone has their own individual, I need to speak my own needs because I have them and I have my own boundaries. And yet we have companies to run. So what are you seeing in that sense of how it can be really in tune with the human perspective while making sure we can still grow as organizations?
Yeah. So the human capital trend, as you know, Jen and Adam, the overarching theme of the report is leading in a boundaryless, I couldn't get that out, world. It's a little bit of a difficult, and this is all kinds of boundaries, right? Like the kind of the boundaries that used to dictate when, where, and how work gets done have completely fallen away. And so we, Adam kind of talked about the trend of overwork, especially those that are working completely remotely. What we have found at Deloitte, in particular through a lot of, sentiment and surveying of our people, is that, we haven't fully figured out hybrid. But the people that, and that is kind of our go forward plan, but the people that choose to go and work in an office feel like that's better for their well-being. And the people that choose to work more remotely or more flexibly, that's better for their well-being. But the common trend is everybody agrees with Adam that a coming together in those moments that matter, whether that's once a year, 4 times a year, whatever the cadence is, there is a desire and a need for true in-person human connection. However, what we do when we come together is very different. And so I think the office as we know it is also changing and shifting. What do people go into the office for? I think what people are struggling with is leaders that say everybody needs to come into the office 2 days a week, 3 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever it is. And then that leader sits behind a glass door and is on calls every day, all day, every day, right? And so they're like, okay, well, why did I come to the office to connect with my leader or others when we're all just sitting with headphones in our ears and we're on back-to-back calls, right? And so I think we need to kind of rethink, like, okay, what are we doing when we come together, right? And if the people are choosing to come to work in an office because that's what works for them, maybe they don't have a good home setup, maybe they live with 4 or 5 roommates, they're choosing to come to the office to work on a day in, day out basis, that's their choice. But when we're calling people to come together for a specific reason that we all need to be in the office on certain days, or we all need to come to this offsite or whatever it is, that needs to be very intentionally designed. And it needs to be much less about the work that we do and much more about human connection. And then I think there's, we can get into kind of other types of boundaries. But I think that the number one thing is, Brené Brown said it best on a lot of other, for a lot of other reasons, but she said, clear is kind, right? And I think what's wrong with hybrid right now is that it's ambiguous. And there you go. Clear and quick is kind. Love it. So organizations and leaders do need to be a lot more clear about what does hybrid mean for our organization. And that doesn't mean everybody needs to be in the office 2, 3, 4 days a week, but what are the guardrails? And within those guardrails, let me as an individual navigate how, when, and where I get my work done. But they can't be, I don't think they can be hard and fast rules, but we do need some guardrails because human beings and human behavior just doesn't work well when it's totally amorphous and nobody knows what the right answer is.
Can I build off that really quick?
Go for it.
I love what you're saying, Jen. I want to applaud and stand up. I think I'm in this emerging field of experience design, which a lot of people don't know what I mean when I say I'm an experience designer. But I think what it means is that the average conference and company offsite there's a status quo that is not working anymore, which is just catering, drinks, sort of mingling around, and then maybe you go bowling, and then there's the sales kickoff. And so what's not happening though is the real below the surface, the bottom 5% of what people are not sharing. And so the need to actually very intentionally design in-person time. I keep saying in-person time is sacred now. It's not taken for granted because sometimes people only get a day a year together. So if you only have a day a year with your team, what are you going to do with that time? And it's really important to actually bring in people who are extremely good at designing for human connection to help teams to make the most out of that time. And so I think that like it is an emerging field around experience designers with an emphasis around human connection to get the most out of this time. And typical team building where people sigh and they like roll their eyes back in their head of just like forced fun, it is also not working. So like, how do we bring it back into the heart and make it a bit more authentic and real, and connect with people where they're at and not force them into things that they hate?
Yeah. I think one other thing I would add that I was remiss in saying is and I don't know if I would call it an emerging trend, but there's certainly a trend around sustainability and climate change and what that means for people. I mean, that people are making decisions based on their views and values around sustainability and climate change. And, part of the human capital trend by Deloitte for 2023 talks a lot about human sustainability, right? Which is broader than, I think, which encapsulates a lot of, Jen, what you and I talk about from a well-being perspective, but purpose and, connecting back to the purpose of an organization and how does that, feed things like green jobs, et cetera. And how do we kind of expand our view of what green jobs actually are if we are making, workers come into the office every single day or get on airplanes every single day. That's not to say it will never happen or it can't happen, but, there is a good portion of the workforce that is very concerned about sustainability and the future of our planet. And they're making decisions about how and where they work based on that as well.
Yeah. I love that tie-in because that basically all these things that we've been talking about for so long, like focusing on the individual and the team and the company, it's like the links and the integration with society and the planet are that much more, real than ever. And I love that people are connecting it. So how do we, as leaders and all that, provide those the environments to keep those connections and support them in stronger ways? I feel like, oh man, time has gone by really quickly. So we've got only 10 minutes left, AJ?
Yeah, we're going to have some Q&A for 10 minutes. So yeah, that was fast. We have a lot to say.
We do. But I think the takeaway from that was that intentional time for real connection. I remember that towards the beginning of hybrid stuff, like this woman from ABC, she was so excited to go to work. She's like, can't wait. She gets into work and she's like, no one's here. Like, no one from my team is here. That small disconnect is like, where can we be more intentional of designing that in a real way? But it brought up a lot of interesting questions too, because Adam Grant set up a firestorm yesterday, and I'd love to hear what you guys think. Maybe not at this forum, but basically you say that people should get paid to do all the offsite, like happy hours, dinners, the connection building stuff, and instead of a firestorm. And I thought, what an interesting question, because some people were like, hell yeah, and some people were like, oh. What planet are you from? That kind of thing. So I digress, but I thought that was an interesting topic that's really relevant.
So yeah, I can say from a well-being perspective, if it is outside of the work day, I think it's a hard one, right? Because and I think that that it shouldn't be a requirement of the job, in particular from a well-being perspective, right? Because people have very different at-home, needs, right? And so, I think I do think it's really hard to kind of require or pass judgment on people who can't or choose not to go to, to things that are after hours. I would also say, from a lot of my experience, we need to be careful that things that happen after work hours aren't always about at a bar or about drinking. Not only because it's not good for your well-being, but because there are people in our workforce that struggle with alcohol and other addiction. And, you're inviting somebody to go to a bar. And if it's something that's required or viewed as, if you don't show up, you're viewed as, less committed, less loyal, less engaged, whatever. You don't know what's going on in their life, right? And so I do think that we have to be careful with those types of things and think about like what Adam's been talking about. How do we embed these and how do we bring them into what we do during the work day, as opposed to things that we do and see and kind of have this unwritten, unspoken rule of they're required after hours in order for you to be viewed as, a committed or engaged employee.
Yeah, I think that's exactly the important points out of this is like the judgment part and like the psychological safety part.
Yeah.
It's less about the activity, right? It's all that comes bundled with it. Like, oh, how disloyal are you? Like kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'll just say really quick, Jen, that I created a no alcohol policy about 5 years ago, and it's really difficult for a lot of clients. But I feel like it's essential to like create spaces for connection without alcohol. And a lot of company cultures, they do not do that. And so it's kind of having to relearn how to connect without like loosening up.
Interesting. Do you lose clients because of that?
It creates hard conversations. I don't think I've lost one. Yeah.
So I see Iris, we've brought to the stage here. Do you want to unmute and share a few thoughts with us? Welcome.
Excuse me. Good morning. Good afternoon, everyone.
Hello, Iris.
Thank you so much. Hello. I have been following your work, Jen, for a very long time. Your and Tony's work. It's just been like super transformational for me and my career. So thank you for leading this Delivering Happiness movement. Super appreciate you and the work you're doing in the world. Yes. And so for the past 15 years, I've been operating co-working spaces and supporting operators. I now train operators of co-working spaces across the world. And, we're very much in that future of work, right? And sort of the hybrid remote space. And what's currently fascinating to me about this conversation is that this is really the conversation that we've been having for 15 years, all of these different aspects of creating psychological safety and people do better when they feel better. And, we know in the co-working world that people feel better when they join a co-working space that's run well. Of course, I'm not talking about WeWork. I'm talking about your corner co-working space that's run by somebody from your community who really cares about creating something better. So my question, so I have an observation and a question, and I dropped part of this into the chat earlier. So we are seeing across the board that people are accessing our spaces in a completely different way than they ever did before from the corporate perspective. We, of course, have always housed your freelancers and your entrepreneurs and your startups. But from the corporate perspective, what we're seeing now is that people are using our space for exactly what Adam's talking about are those hybrid coming together days, those team days, whether it be a culture building day, right? Like a connection day, or let's get massive amounts of work done together. And we feel like the best way to do that is to all meet in this one regional area where we all kind of come together. And so that's what we're seeing the majority of the access being right now. We are, of course, also seeing the same kind of trends that we saw with the layoffs that we saw in 2008 and 2009, where our spaces were filling up with, especially here in the Valley, right, in the Silicon Valley area, our spaces are filling up with laid off people who are now looking for either they're going to start their next thing or they're looking for their next job. And so my curiosity is, how are you seeing this trend of people pushing back against the idea of work from anywhere policies and bringing people back into the corporate office? And we know that some people work great at home and some people don't work well at home at all, right? And some people need to work in their car on the way between dropping their kids at all the places that their kids need to go on a daily basis or whatever it is. So I'm curious, how are you seeing this trend in terms of wellness? How much stress are you seeing this trend of we are canceling work from anywhere, we're canceling flex work, we're canceling hybrid work, and everybody has to come back into office, and the stress that that's putting particularly on people who have families or are in the age that's raising the next generation, who frankly, being part of that has been hit the hardest in the past 3 years, I think. of anybody in the work world.
Hmm. I'd love to hear from y'all as well, but like for me, I think that it's, it was maybe passable before. I remember, I don't know if you remember when Yahoo did it, the CEO said, oh, everyone's in, and then they're like, well, it's lucky for you because you can say that because you could do kid daycare right next door in your office. So, it created a lot of friction, created a lot of tension. She got what she wanted, but, that came out the way it was. But that was before COVID. That was 2020 BC. And now we are where we are today. And so I think, again, Jen Fisher's speaking with your feet, right? Like women, especially who had to wear so many more hats that people assumed that they were going to wear, are the people that are saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. 1 out of 10 are saying, no way, if this is like going to be in person in the office, I'm not going to even, 9 out of 10 are saying, I'm not going to even consider this job. And then there was a whole, I think it was maybe a few months ago, where high-level women leaders were specifically leaving the workforce because of these reasons that flexibility was not built in. So I think because we all went through these last few years of changes, there's just no way we lost our control. We lost our autonomy. We lost a sense of all these levers of happiness that we talked about for all these years. And there's no way when we've lost that and people want to continue to take that away, that do we want to like step into where we were before? So I think the trend will be different because of like the difference between what happened with Yahoo to now is that people are willing to say no, even when it's destabilizing in some ways of their everyday, of even their own livelihood, of the bills they have to pay because of this reprioritization of that higher meaning, of that purpose of like, I was living my life in a way that it was totally like whack, according to what was most meaningful to me. And so I say women, but it really is both women and men that are doing this and just really just stepping into, I think, a sense of authenticity and a sense of just like realizing what purpose really means beyond that word we've been using for so long.
Yeah. And I think just a trend from our industry that kind of points to exactly what you're saying is that we're seeing a very big influx of co-working spaces successfully opening and running sustainably out of suburbs now, much more so than city centers, which were always the hot markets prior to the pandemic, and now the hotter markets are becoming the suburbs. And they're filling, and I run an organization that supports women who open and run co-working spaces. So we are seeing female operators are opening co-working spaces at twice that rate now than they were prior to the pandemic. And I think that has a lot to do with it, especially childcare-based co-working spaces. So really fascinating. I have so many more questions. I want to talk about trauma-informed
Oh my gosh.
Policies coming out of the pandemic for employers. Right. But I'm going to step out and allow some other questions. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a whole nother episode. AJ, you got that trauma. Oh my gosh.
I
Iris
know.
for sure.
Thank you, Iris.
Thank you, Iris. All righty.
How did we already get to 1:30? This was so good. We had so much more to share. Our team is going to stick around. We have some resources. We're going to be here to answer questions. But I do want to say thank you to Jen and Adam and Jen. That makes it easier when you.
I think we need a part 2. We need a part 2.
I think so. But I do really appreciate it. Yeah. I mean, we were just getting started. So Sarah said, yes, definitely a part 2. Awesome. So our team will stay here, and I see Allie real quick for a question, but I know Jen and Adam and Jen, you may have somewhere you have to jump, and we totally understand. But I'm going to bring Allie to the stage if I can.
I'm good. I'm good to stay. I'm leading an event for a law firm in 2 hours, but I'm good right now.
Oh, I think I may have lost Allie. Allie. Okay. I think she may have jumped because she disappeared. And I promised she was a real person. So, but yeah, so we have,
Jen,
we have
okay
Sarah.
to stay, Jen?
Yeah, I can stay about another 10 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Okay, lovely.
Well,
All
I'm
right.
going to be FOMOs if I leave right now. So I want to stay tuned.
I know. I can't wait. But there's
Hi, Sarah.
Sarah. Oh,
If you can unmute and chat us up.
Unmute. Sorry.
There you go.
Hi guys. Yeah, it's just
Hi.
that the host wanted to speak, so I didn't want to take over. It said, "Do you want to stay muted?" I was like, okay. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys staying on, because I know whenever I have calls with the US, it's like daytime for you and it's evening for me, so I've got all night. But you guys have stuff to do. Yeah, I was going to just make a quick comment on the women, and it's not just women, but childcare responsibilities, and also people with disabilities, with the whole thing with ESG. I don't think it's a new trend, but we're definitely going to see more of it. The whole thing with not getting into senior positions because of childcare. But I think that, from my understanding, the 4-day week or some flexibility will help, and hopefully more people will get on board with that. But yeah, it would just be interesting to hear your views on how we tackle that, because there's just no way to win and move up the hierarchy if you're not all there all day when they need you to be. You know, I go to dialysis, which is in the evening and not during the workday, but still, it's, you know, if I had anything where I couldn't be there during the day, I know I wouldn't get coached for promotion in senior positions. So it just seems to be like a lose-lose situation. And the problem in London as well, we have a cost of living crisis. I'm sure it's the same in the US, recession and after COVID. And the cost of childcare is extortionate. So you just can't do that and work as well. So it's just, yeah, you have to lose on something. So whoever is doing the childcare just cannot progress in their work.
I think the trend around a boundary, I don't know why I can't say that word, boundaryless world. It tries to, or as an attempt, or tries to address some of that, Sarah. But again, it's not a quicker and easy fix. But a work world without boundaries also means that that work becomes truly skill-based, and you look for the best workers regardless of where they physically live or sit. And it takes into account the need for flexibility and autonomy and different times and ways and places of working. And so that is embedded into what it means to be boundaryless. I'm never going to get that word right. To have no boundaries in a good way. Because the upside for an organization and for the workforce is that you can get the best talent for the work that needs to be done, because you're not hiring from a single pool of people that happen to live in a certain city, state, country, but that you can look across the world and across and you can look at a talent workforce that perhaps you never looked at before, because there were written or unwritten rules around how we sourced talent. And so I think that is part of the way. I think that is the direction that organizations need to move in the future, and it's part of the human capital trend, and kind of part of what we meant by what we say when we say boundaryless world.
You almost had it.
I'm going to stop saying that word. It's much easier to write it than it is to say it out loud. I'll tell you that much.
It looks really cool on paper.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
And now it's just in your head,
Yeah,
so.
I don't know. Exactly. And then I get stuck in my head. So I don't know if that helps, but I do think organizations that thrive are going to move to looking at workforces that are beyond just, what's right in front of them.
Thank you, Sarah. I did see a note over here too from Becky where she was talking about aging population. So it's what Sarah was saying about like with the little kids, but then also with the aging population, having to help with, your parents and things like that. So yeah, do we have any more questions?
This comment, Adam, Jen, and Jen need to get their own show together.
Yes, I agree.
Part 2, part 3, we got something here.
Guys, do you mind if I just ask another quick question, please?
I do have to drop, but thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thank
Jen,
you.
Adam, AJ.
Yes,
You guys
thank
are
you,
all amazing.
Jen,
Talk soon.
so great to
Please
meet
stay
you,
in
Jen.
touch.
Thank
You
you.
too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Bye. See you.
Right.
I'm gonna talk
So
sorry.
okay.
you.
So yes, thank you, Jen.
Oh,
Bye, Jen.
there it is.
Are you leaving too, Adam? Or are you staying?
I mean, I'll stay for another minute. I got to run in a second here. Thank you so much,
Okay.
AJ, for putting this together, though.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
we still got 19 people here. I don't know if there's any thoughts or questions that you have for me, or
Okay, so let's do a
reflection.
few more questions. And then also we have, so before everybody just jumps, we do have something we're going to share at the end. So I see Sarah, so I'm going to pop you, if I can grab you.
Hi.
Hello.
Oh, I can't see you.
Oh, hi. Yeah, thanks. Thank you. Sorry, I've got so many questions. So we definitely need like a part 2, 3, 4. Just wondering in like the last minute, if this amazing panel can summarize their thoughts on AI and how you think that's going to impact connections. Do you think it will help us? Do you think it will hinder? Yeah. And thanks very much for an amazing panel, guys. Honestly, thank you.
Wow,
absolutely. Thank you.
It's interesting that I'm the person answering this question because I'm like the most I'm on like the bring the humans together, like let go of the robots, get off the screens. That's my thing. But so I feel like I don't have that many deep insights into the future of AI and how it's going to affect the workplace. I just know the power of human connection and that will never go away. So as much as AI can support in some of our productivity and tasks in the workforce, but I still think that, I just see it's essential. Eye contact, touch, connection, uncovering the aspects of ourselves that we don't often get to share. I don't think there's a way yet that we've found to truly replicate that. So thank God I don't want that to be the case.
Yeah. So, and just to add to that, Sarah, we do have someone at Delivering Happiness that's been kind of doing some early stage research into some of the AI tools. So if you want to message me your email, I could put you in touch with him. I'm sure he would love to talk about it. So
totally agree, Kylie. Yeah, the need for developing emotional intelligence and human connection will only increase with the rise of AI and robotics and the future of technology. Totally agree. All right. I also now have to go. I'm gonna go deliver. Like I said, I'm off to go deliver a workshop right now for a law firm that says that they have never done any human connection like offsite ever in their like entire history of over 40 years. So this is like kind of an unprecedented moment for them. They realize that they really need in the times that we're in. So
awesome. Thank you, Adam. Thank you so much.
Bye, everyone.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
See you soon.
And then we have Jess that we're bringing to the stage. She is part of our team at Delivering Happiness. So everyone meet Jess, lovely Jess. And one of the things we wanted to share at the end is that we are going to follow up basically in email. You'll get part of the recording since we did not hit record right at the start. And then you'll also get the top 10 trends. We actually put together a report. So some of the things we were unable to cover today, we'll be following up with. And then also we have our people strategy session that we are giving 30 days of access to. So maybe Jess, you could kind of share a little bit about what is a people strategy session? So
Yeah,
a PSS.
Yeah, so we are all wanting to know, okay, here are the trends, but now what next? So basically what we do in the people strategy session is that we guide you through it. So we don't want to rebuild something that you already have done. We want to build from there. So we want to share from our perspective and our experience and with our proven model, what you can do with what you already have. With what you have, the strategy that you have in place. So what's next, how you can leverage that and how you can address your top challenges, but also how you can celebrate what you're doing right. Someone in the chat put, I think we're most focused on what's not working and less focused on what's working. So we also want to give you specific tools that allow you to celebrate what's working and then give you these specific tools also to address what you want to improve. So basically it's a one-on-one guidance call to help you to achieve what you want to achieve.
Beautiful. So we will follow up in email, but I wanted to give opportunity for anybody to ask any more questions before we close out. So if you want to unmute or raise your hand, I can find you. That sounded creepy.
It sounded creepy. Don't be scared, people.
Yeah, absolutely. And if not, then we will